Hello, it's me again, here to tell you about an incredibly important process called cellular respiration. When we talked last, we were talking about photosynthesis, which the product of that is we made food. Awesome. Not us, but things, autotrophs that do photosynthesis, like plants. But now, what do we use the food for? That's what I'm going to talk to you today about. Basically, we do a lot of things. We breathe. We walk around. Like, we jog sometimes. Sometimes we want to rip off a few pull-ups.
62, 63, 64. What?
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, we need energy. That's why we eat food. Not only for exercising or for doing stuff that you do in PE. This is stuff that we need to replicate our DNA, to build and grow cells, for those cells to divide, for all the jobs that our cells do throughout our body. They need energy. Okay, so they're going to get that through this little thing called cellular respiration. And most of it happens right here. You know what that is? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but this is a mitochondria. Okay, so chloroplasts for the organelle, the cell organelle in plants that does the photosynthesis. There's a couple locations where cellular respiration is going to happen, but most of it happens in the mitochondria. Alright, we're going to take a look at the photosynthesis equation once again. If you remember this, and hopefully you do, you'll find that when you have water combined with CO2 and sunlight that reaches the leaf of a plant, and specifically the chloroplasts where this is taking place, when you combine those three reactants, you end up making food through photosynthesis. This is sugar or glucose, a molecule of food, and it gives off oxygen. Now, when we talk about respiration, you can almost think of it in terms of it's like the opposite. Okay? What you see as reactants in photosynthesis is now going to be, in a different form, the products of respiration. What you see as the products of photosynthesis will then go toward the reactant side in cellular respiration. Okay, so this, we just flipped them. Okay, now we have the sugar glucose molecule, the food over here, and then combine that. Oxygen is needed in most cases to break down this food, and when that food is broken down, they're going to be broken down into these three parts: water, CO2 or carbon dioxide, and then energy. And that's the big thing. So we just took food, put it into our bodies, and at this cellular level, we just made energy out of it. Energy that we need in the form of ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. You don't need to remember that, but ATP is that awesome energy that we need. Okay? To balance it out properly, if you go ahead and count the number of oxygen molecules over here on the left, including these and those, you'll see that they are balanced with the oxygen molecules over here. So this is a balanced respiration equation. You don't need to memorize that, but you should know what the reactants at the basic level are. We have oxygen and glucose, or food, or sugar. and we're making water, CO2, or carbon dioxide, and energy. All right, so what organisms can do this? Actually, pretty much every organism does this. Okay, even the plants that make the food by photosynthesis, autotrophs, they make their own food, they will need energy, and they need to break down the food that was made like this, using respiration. So you are not limited just to those things that can't do photosynthesis, which, by the way, like us, we can't do photosynthesis, but we can and need to do cellular respiration. So all heterotrophs, anything that has to eat to get that energy, also would do this respiration, which would include this mangy-looking raccoon and Steph Curry and your mom and your dad and your grandpa and every single animal and organism that needs to get energy, which is pretty much every organism. So heterotrophs means that they get their food from other places. Okay, so basically they eat. All right, so where does this whole cellular respiration thing happen? It depends on what stage you're talking. And there's a couple of stages and a lot of events that take place that you don't need to memorize. Maybe when you're in college, someday you might need to memorize the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle and what happens in the electron transport chain. But for now, there are a few things that I'd like you to know as a 7th grader. Okay, so 2 stages of cellular respiration. Stage 1, we've got this food molecule, this glucose molecule with 6 carbons in it. Now we need to break that down, make it smaller, more absorbable, or easier molecule to deal with. So it actually splits into 2, and that gives off a little bit of energy. We don't even need oxygen to do this part. So glycolysis is the first part. This is just like in the cytoplasm of a cell. Then, once we get to stage 2, this is going to happen in the mitochondria. Remember the powerhouse of the cell? This is where a lot of respiration takes place. And it is complicated, but there is a series of events here that breaks down these smaller sugar molecules down, and in the process creates a lot of ATP, a lot of energy. And that process does require oxygen. So there is a reason you breathe. It's because we need energy, and because we need it to break down the food in order to get it. Alright, I thought this video was an excellent one explaining what's happening in mitochondria and exactly how that might occur. So what that video shows is a little more complex look at what's actually happening inside mitochondria during the Krebs cycle, how certain parts of the cell or components of that mitochondria get activated and do a good job of breaking down food into the energy that it does. It's an efficient, amazing process that I would advise that you take a look at that video. Also in the show notes, I'd like you to watch this one. On one half of the screen, you're going to see what happens really during respiration, and on the other side, you can see what happens with photosynthesis, and you can see how those 2 processes are related. So definitely check out that. It's just a couple minutes long. One more thing I want to mention about respiration is that respiration is not the only way that our cells or organisms get energy. It is possible, like I said before, to get some energy without the presence of oxygen, and that process is called fermentation. And there are a couple of different methods of fermentation, alcoholic and lactic acid fermentation, but both of them provide energy for cells without the use of oxygen. So that's the main thing to remember. It's a quicker source of energy, But once you run out, or one product of fermentation, the advantage is it's quicker energy. It's explosive power that you can get, quick power that you can get by breaking down sugar very quickly without even the presence of oxygen. It is inefficient though, and at a certain point, one of the products of fermentation is lactic acid. And if you've ever run a race or done an exercise like I just did, and you just run out of energy instantly, or it feels like you've hit the wall, that will occur, and that's basically your body saying there's so much lactic acid buildup here that the muscle fibers that are trying to fire right now simply cannot. They have run out of energy and the means to get that energy. So you end up hitting a wall, kind of like what this guy does around the 1 minute mark of a 400-meter race.
Come on, Caleb!
Go, Caleb! Go, go, Caleb! Get him!
Poor guy. All right, so that's it on respiration. Adios, amigos.